S2W1, like you mentioned before, the Faint of Heart reduction and the execute damage on Faint of Heart reduced from 20% down to 10%. But even then, a lot of players are just still so afraid of going up against a Black Feather. As for the Reza, we know Impunity, Blue CD from Impunity enjoys playing Reza, and he brought Reza out once in the Vainglory 8 Southeast Asia, although it was a harder game for Impunity to win, like we mentioned, but it worked out for them. So now that Reza is just so strong and Assassin heroes in general are just so strong, maybe we might just see a Reza coming through from Impunity. However, the first phase of bans coming out from Impunity would be that of Ringo, and as for J3X Inferno, there are 33 more heroes on the fold they can ban out. 34. Excluding Ringo, it's 33. You know?
No, the Churnwalker makes it 35. If you scroll down here, it's 5 by 7 here. 35
right,
heroes.
There you go. So
I'm really surprised by this Ringo ban. Ringo's not a hero that's like in the meta at all. He's barely ever picked. He's certainly not banned a lot. But obviously, the Black Feather going to be banned away by J3X. There's a lot more of a meta ban. Impunity straight away. They want to pick the Vox. They were clearly expecting the Black Feather ban. Now, J3X are probably a bit confused as to why Ringo is banned, but they just go through your draft strategy as you prepared it, pick up whichever captain they want to prioritise. Perhaps it could be the Arden, maybe the Lyra. He said she doesn't feel that strong, but she has been banned away quite a lot, so that could be a good idea. They're going to go with the Adagio. Very different, a completely different meta to what we saw in the first game, except the Adagio is the only real constant with Black Feather. And so maybe that's going to be another weapon Adagio. Perhaps we're going to see a captain this time, maybe with a weapon carry and an assassin most likely to go onto this Vox. I think that'd be a smart idea. Go for an assassin, try and dive in. So the ban here, there's really anything they could go for. They could ban something like an Arden or a Lyra, whichever captain they don't want to play themselves. Could be a good ban for J3X.
Yep, and I think Adagio going up against Vox as a laner. In lane, would Adagio definitely come out on top in the early game. Only reason because Adagio's poke in the early game, as we mentioned, longest range in game as well. So Adagio definitely it's a suitable pickup as going up against Vox. But we do see the Celeste being banned out by the side of J3X Inferno, and that kind of boggles my mind. I mean, we did see Chingy bring out Celeste, and Celeste, as we agreed on, Shatterglass is the go-to first item, maybe followed by Dragon's Eye, if not then a Broken Myth, then Eve of Harvest or something afterwards. No matter how you build it, Celeste still has got a power spike at level 8. When she gets her item, she's just very, very strong because she can just lay down landmines. But as a ban, I personally don't think it should be prioritized. It shouldn't be of any form of emphasized at all from the side of J3X Inferno. However, we do see the Arden being banned out by Impunity, a much more meta ban coming through from the side of Impunity. The side of J3X Inferno, they can't really just settle for anything. They can't settle for an assassin if they want to. Assassin meta has been all the rage these days.
Yeah, I think Kestrel could also be picked. We saw a lot of Kestrel last game. He's a really good hero, even against Vox. In a straight 1v1, Kestrel's probably going to win that, especially given the range advantage you have, especially with Glimmer Shot. So I think that would be a reasonably good pick to try and, if not counter the Vox, try and play against the Vox in lane, unless they decide to go with the weapon Adagio, which you never know. Maybe J3X are going to pull that one out again from SEA. And so if they do that, they've obviously got Lyra, they've got Lance. We said Finn was played quite a lot by Renegade mainly, so maybe they're going to bring that out. And of course, Grace is still pretty strong. So the Arden ban is all right, but it's not really that much of a priority because there are so many other captains that can be picked.
I don't quite like Adagio being placed on the captain role, unless, of course, you tell me this particular Adagio that we might see on the captain role have got the gift of live talent, granting the fortified health as well.
Yeah, he has the legendary talent. When he heals, when he ults, it does heal. But we're going to see the double heal comp. Ooh, old school from J3X, despite the fact they're up against a Vox who has guaranteed mortal wound as the first item.
And we will see a rhyme coming through from the side of Impunity. A lot of talks have been on this rhyme. We have seen constant and consistent bans of Rhyme in Vainglory 8 EU and NA, but not quite yet in the SCA. A lot of people are just not, a lot of players are not prioritizing this Rhyme whatsoever. Granted, you can pick out the Sky, you can pick out something that outranges Rhyme and just play against it. But Rhyme is just so strong currently, and he is basically the king of jungle, right? Maybe we might see an Aftershock Rhyme coming out from Impunity. I mean, they have quite a robust team of analysts behind that, and maybe Aftershock has been in talks, but there you go. We do see a Sky coming out from J3X Inferno. Sky does very well against a Rhyme, unless Rhyme builds very early movement speed, get on top of Sky, roots her in place, let her miss every single tick of forward barrage, and just immediately just delete her from the fold with a Winter Spire into Valkyrie combo.
Yeah, I definitely think that the double route will be really important. Now the Impale land the Chill Winds route onto Sky, and then she's in a terrible position. I think the draft was really smart from Impunity. They picked the Vox as a priority pick, then went for Rhyme and whatever captain they wanted, because with a double hero comp, 9 times out of 10, you want that third hero to be someone tanky like Rona, Rhyme, Blackfeather, an assassin with tank, like a glaive could work well. And so Rhyme counters most of those heroes. Because if they're tanky, Rhyme is more tanky, unless you pick up Cruel, which is all right, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't work well against Vox at all. And Lance is quite good against Cruel, so that was a smart drop. But then J3X just decided to flip the comp on its head, basically, and go, okay, we're going to have a double heal, but we're still going to not pick a bruiser or an assassin. We're just going to try and kite the Rhyme for days. And maybe it'll work. I think it's tough for J3X to execute this properly, because the healers don't really synergize with Sky that well. If Sky gets caught out, she's dead, even if she gets double heal, because of the Mortal Wound from Vox will reduce the healing. She has no barrier, no fortified health, or anything to try and stop Rhyme from being able to burst her down. I really like what Impunity have got, but as you said, it is down to whether Rhyme can boots in, land that stun, because if Rhyme boots is in and Sky boots is away, then Rhyme's kind of a sitting duck for either Dragon's Eye stacks or just for poke damage.
Yep, and we all know Nibimim on the Sky is just insanely good. In fact, and we've seen Nibimim on the Sky make plays for J3X Inferno, even turning and changing, just basically flipping games around. So this double Q comp, just supporting Nibimim on this guy, maybe it'll work. But overall, Baby will definitely be going on to the Weapon Adagio. In the early game, can push Vox out of lane. But Vox, like you mentioned, will definitely build the Poison Shift just for the extra sustain, firstly, in the early game, and the Mortal Wound that can be inflicted with one basic attack into a Sonic Zoom. So maybe that is something that J3X Inferno have to consider going into team fights. But overall, if you were to ask me, Impunity's draft just looks just a tad better, although the side of J3X Inferno has got the Sky.
They're definitely all about execution, as most of these drafts are. No one massively in the lead. We are now heading onto the fold for the first game of the second series, and casting this match will be the luscious Luxuria and the fantastic I Request a Duel.
Thank you, Mini Mitre, for that introduction. And yes, we are here into the match, the side of Impunity and the likes of I completely had a mind blank, J3X Inferno. And yeah, with that, I was definitely following alongside you guys with that draft there. And to see the Vox and Rhyme end up on one team, you've got this one team that's quite the current meta. These heroes that are both really strong right now. I mean, Vox has never really fallen out of the meta, to say the least. But when we look over to the side of J3X Inferno, they've got, you know, this double healing kind of comp and the Sky pickup, which I don't think is bad at all if they're able to keep their distance and kite away. But there's going to be the lockdown coming out of Impunity as they go on to iBaby, picking up the first blood, following through with the second blood. And that is why this comp is probably going to work out well for them as long as Queasy can continue to land those impales. It provides an easy opportunity for Blue City to get onto those targets. None of the heroes really have very good ways of getting away from that, other than Sky with her target lock, of course. But it's not like you're going up against a Gwen in the lane who would be able to use the skedaddle to escape those kind of root moments. But here we see that Adagio might be alright in terms of going up against the Vox on his own. When we look at Adagio Vox, the kind of playoff there, the only problem is you got to look at the whole team comps as a whole for each team, and I would have to say I'm preferring what Impunity's picked up for this draft.
Well, very similar thoughts here, but in the early game, definitely J3X Inferno will have the push in lane and the pressure as well. The range coming out from both Kahlua and Baby.
And it looks like Kahlua going to take a fair amount of damage. Blue City trying to catch them out, but we also see Bim rotating up to the lane, putting the pressure down with that forward barrage. Blue City, meanwhile, keeping them at bay with the Winter Spires and looking for just any opportunity to go into them. But Kahlua on that Lyra is going to have an Imperial Sigil available to help with the sustain for the team. Bim pushing in, fairly aggressive here, looking for Quisi under the turret, gets him fairly low, going to use the Surge Strike to get around, but no one's going to be able to find the kill, taking a fair few shots from that turret. Might just have to back off into the jungle, and could be looking to steal some away from the Rhyme. They will be able to take that mid-tree ant, and now Vox already forced to back it, or it looked like he is considering it, and this is the pressure that Baby's able to put down on his own. Now we do see Blue City getting pushed out of his own jungle on this Rhyme.
Yep, and I was saying earlier on how strong Rhyme is in the current meta. Although we saw some changes, saw some nerf onto Winter Spire, the initial damage and the explosion or the exploding damage for the Winter Spire as well. But coming into this, in order for Blue City to just catch up onto Bim, he must constantly have got his boots up. On top of that, besides the boots being up, he needs to have a 1-up in boots. So if Sky has got to travel, Rhyme must have the journey, right? In order to just to have the extra movement speed going up against Sky, so as to just land your basic attacks, and then of course land your Winter Spires and your Chilled Winds as well. But we do see a lot of pressure coming through from J3X Inferno. Look at how low QC and ZFQ are. They're just leaving Blue City on this little old feeble man to protect this and hold this turret.
Yes, but the old feeble man might be all they need, but it looks like Lance going to fall as he did stay around that turret. I'm not sure why he didn't back with Def Q. I believe especially in the early game, Blue City would have been able to hold it on his own on Rhyme. So especially once you get those Winter Spires off, you can start getting the fortified health as the minions pushing. But you could see before Kahlua doing a great job with the Imperial Sigils. Of course, it's not going to do much damage as you're playing the roam support Lyra, but was just doing a great job of constantly catching out Quisi and Def Q from backing.
Yeah, we do see all three members of Impunity once again in that lane, just trying to apply as much pressure as they can, not allowing Baby to farm. But we looking over at CS and talking about farming, Baby 48 CS as compared to Def Q's 35. But going back to CS, and or rather not going back to it, but leaving that aside, we all know Impunity, what they excel at is teamwork and basically just moving and maneuvering very strategically, in a sense where in the late game it doesn't quite matter in terms of CS. They just can't win just based on team fights alone, and if they win just 1 or 2 team fights, they can definitely catch up with their CS on Def Q for the CS. And we do see the Sorrow Blade already completed on Baby, and yet Def Q only sitting on their poison shift, definitely taking a lot of damage.
Yep, and we now see them trying to put some pressure on the turret, but are going to get punished for it. The Impale lands and followed up by the Giphian Wall will stun them up for a second, but defensive use of that death from above. Def Q going low is going to fall to the Adagio, and now the instant pressure being put on by J3X Inferno. They want this early turret. They're trying to push the minions in under there. You can see now working on that turret, needing to be careful, taking a fair few shots from it as well, but Blue City, without being able to land those Winter Spires, isn't going to be as useful and definitely not as tanky. And before Barrage just has such range on it at the moment, Sky's able to kind of poke from afar. And you know Adagio, just as soon as he gets in there, of course, going to have so much attack speed, so much damage. And there's the death from above. Doesn't catch out DefQ quite so, but Queasy going fairly low, needs to be careful. Baby going to be in the front line, gets caught out on the Valkyrie. This is going to be the turnaround from Impunity as they catch out one, but not two. They get iBaby and Naibimbim. They could go for a return turret. It's only Kalua protecting it at the moment, and they're going to push their advantage here.
Yep, they can definitely push this tired amount of damage coming out from Blue City and DefQ on this very early game build Fox. And now the next blood might just go down, or rather go to Impunity, if Kalua just continues staying there, not able to catch out DefQ on that TP, means that Kalua will not find the kill for herself or for himself. But that changed. Basically what happened then was they just overextended, you know, just put themselves out of position, so much so that, you know, Impunity can just take advantage of that. Like I mentioned before, Impunity works the best as a team, in a team, and they can basically capitalize on every little mistake that you make throughout, because their macro plays really just, you know, outscales a lot of teams' macros overall. DefQ opting for the poison ship in the early game, going into the breaking point, means that he is going for the very cheap build. So early game, he definitely will have the power spike. This Tail and Tower definitely will go down to the likes of J3X Inferno if they continuously push this lane out.
Ooh, but maybe not if they get caught out and impale, but there's going to be a Verse of Judgment in return. Doesn't stun anyone out, and it's just going to be Baby stuck in the middle, getting caught out. Kalua now getting chased down by DefQ. Will they be able to pick up the kill? It looks like they're going to let them roam free, but meanwhile, Naibimbim in the jungle trying to escape the clutches of Blue City, and Queasy was able to push Queasy off, but Blue City is going to be on the chase, deciding to leave it for now. So good job, and you can see the potential here with the Sky play, that into the late game team fights can get turned around if they're able to position themselves correctly and not get caught up like they did before. And the problem was that rarely you could see them being so over-aggressive, and they got punished for it. You really need to be careful against this kind of team with such good lockdown between the Lance and the Rhyme. And meanwhile, if you're so focused on getting away from them, Vox is just going to be dancing around you as he always does, building up those breaking point stacks, and yeah, just becoming a menace into the late game.
Yep, looking over to build. Impunity, or rather DefQ on that Vox, has got the poison shift, has got a breaking point, a lot of attack speed, a lot of chance to build up damage. And talking about damage,
Yep, we see that there's a lot going down across the board, and Baby gonna be the first to fall again. Lyra is going to use those boots to get out of there, and it looks like they are going to be able to find the safety of their own jungle. But meanwhile, Impunity looking for more, might go for this gold miner. They do pop the vision on it, so I don't believe there'd be a contest, but perhaps Kalua and Naibimbim don't want to just let this go over into the hands of Impunity, going to try and do something here. Kalua needs to be careful, however, is already quite low. And there we go. Luckily, DefQ able to push away Kalua and Naibimbim and help their team just secure that safely. And then we look over to the gold lead so far. I mean, both teams have a turret in their name now, but the kills going over in favor of Impunity, having 6-2, and it's pushed them up to 22.6k over to the side of 20.5k. So they're a fair bit ahead here, not too much, and it's definitely, you know, the side of Inferno are able to catch up on this. They just need to be careful going into these fights. Baby, always the first one to fall, and it seems like it's quite tough for the Adagio. He really has to stand still a lot of the time when attacking, or at least isn't so mobile, and that's why I said at the start of the game why I thought, you know, it's definitely going to be quite an Impunity-favored game because of the fact of the only team on Inferno, that only team member on Inferno that really has that mobility as the Sky.
And we saw this team lineup before, and we saw this composition before. Just in our first game, our first series, the first game of the first series, we saw Rhyme going up against Adagio, and Rhyme just does so well because of how immobile that Adagio is. And as long, I mean, Naibimbim is there, true, to just keep Rhyme off with those forward barrage. but it's just not enough just yet. I mean, Nibim really needs that Frostburn going into the Dragon's Eye just to build up the extra stacks, extra CP for the extra slow as well, and the amount of CCs coming out of Nibim, if she goes for the Dragon's Eye very early in the game, will be immense and tremendously helpful in team fights. But at this point in time, we are looking at Nibim, and she is settling for the piercing shot. Not a bad pickup, 12% shield pairs. Shield pairs have been changed. Minimizer mentioned it. I mentioned it in the previous game. But Nibim, on this guy, I just don't quite feel... I'm not quite feeling the build coming out from this guy at all. Dragon's Eye would have been a much better item pickup with the Frostburn. It just gels so well. It works so well, the Frostburn. And with that Dragon's Eye, you can just build up so much stack in such a short period of time. If you just stay in a team fight. I mean, for a barrage lasts for like what? I think like what, 6 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, something along those seconds line. But yeah, I'm quite unsure. But
I
so
don't think it's 6 seconds, but
yeah, I don't think
it's
so,
a fair few seconds, and I understand your item choice kind of consideration there as to why you should pick up a Dragon's Eye instead. And I think overall, this patch of Dragon's Eye just such a great item, and as I said before, really brings out the strengths of a lot of new heroes and has shaped the meta in a lot of ways. Hence why Rhyme, being one of those heroes, is also quite good with the Dragon's Eye when you get into those fights. However, both of these heroes, Sky and Rhyme, have neither gone for this Dragon's Eye yet, and I think it's quite tough in general just for itemization with Sky still. Sky can be alright, but as a Sky main, I think that there are just a lot better CP picks out there at the moment. In this situation, however, against the Rhyme, it wasn't a bad pick to really, you don't want to be up in Rhyme's face, you don't want to have to go on a 1v1 directly with him. Instead, you want someone who can kite around him.
Well, definitely. I mean, that Rhyme coming out from the side of Impunity was definitely not a surprising pick. I mentioned in the first game, in the first series, Rhyme so very strong currently, and yet not a lot of teams are actually prioritizing him in terms of bans. I mean, they probably have got some way to work around Rhyme in, you know, ranked games or even like scrimmages that they had between each other. But you know, coming into a competition at this level, Rhyme should be considered as a worthy ban through and through. He's just so very strong. He works very well with CC heavy comms, and it just protects the back lines so well because of the amount of fortified health that Rhyme receives, right? The longer he stays in a team fight, the more fortified health he gets, and with the Spire just gives him so much more tankiness than he needs, right, to stay in the team fight. I mean, granted, a lot of players have thought maybe 2.9.1 has seen enough, right? Rhyme saw enough. Maybe it doesn't work as well anymore. But we are saying so that, you know, teams can still play Rhyme. Rhyme is so still very strong. And another thing that I'll mention would be Lance. Right, in the first game, second game, third game of the first series, we did not see no priority over this Lance or any form of emphasis whatsoever. It's almost as if Lance kind of have phased out of meta. But now we do see that Impunity bring out this Lance and just playing so well, sneaking a gold mine under J3X's noses.
Yep, and that's going to push that gold lead even further. Now they're sitting at 32.9k over to the 29k on the side of J3X Inferno. So if they really are falling behind here slowly and slowly, I mean, as to say that it's not lost yet, as I mentioned before, and it's all going to come down to the team fights, but right now it really just doesn't look like J3X Inferno want to go looking for those team fights. And do you think they're better off to try get those team fights now with early Kraken being up rather than risking it and waiting so much longer into the late game?
Well, I think in the late game, definitely on this, folks, although I constantly say that this build is for the cheap, I may have to hold my point.
Yep, we see the wait for it coming out onto Baby. Whether Impunity are going to push off that one is the question. They will be waiting for Queasy more than likely to land the Impale for a good solid engage. Bluesy trying to push up through the top of that brush there. Does land the Winter Spire, but as you said before, is going to need to use those boots if he really wants to commit to something. But I do think for the side of Impunity, they're being quite patient here, waiting for Queasy to actually go over the wall with Impale. Lands on Denied Bim Bim. Death from above going going to be used. Valkyrie manages to land on the backline, but doesn't stun up anyone, but it's going to open up opportunity for DefQ to get onto Baby. Great use of the Giphian wall to pull him there. Queasy so very low, but it doesn't matter because DefQ in that front line doing work. Gamebo's breaking point stacks is going to be able to take out Baby and Night Bim Bim. Once again, Kahlua on their own, and DefQ able to take a turret with that. Might even push for more, knowing that Kahlua is only there. Not really going to be able to stop them unless they're able to clear those minions, which luckily it's the least Kahlua can do. And now we do go over to the rest of the team of Impunity, who are making work on this Kraken. They're definitely going to be able to take it. And now there's a bit of trouble. 3 turrets left for the side of J3X Inferno, and they're going to have to go face-to-face with Impunity as they push in. So now they are forced to fight. They lost the opportunity to choose their engagements, as they're now going to have to defend their base. And we do see Lyra getting caught out with the Giphian wall. Death from above does not catch out Queasy, though. Great use of the Impale. Queasy just doing amazing work on Lance this match. And we see Blue City going to chase down Sky. DefQ picking up the kill there. And now Baby is the last one left standing there in such a worse position than they would have been anyway, having to go up against Impunity defending their base, because now they're all going to get taken down. There's the ace, and that's more than likely going to be game with a full health Kraken pushing in and the turrets falling so quickly.
What a controlled game, and it's such a paced game from the side of Impunity, definitely showing they are still the top dogs. They are still very, very strong. Granted, I want to say that J3X Inferno did not draft in any form, in any way terrible, but just looking over the DefQ's build. So constantly for a while now, I've said that, you know, Vox's build generally is very, very cheap, very economical. It works very well in the early game because of the poison shift for the extra sustain into the mid game, but it falls out in the late game. However, DefQ on this Vox changed it around, you know, and just do it, you know, in such a way where he go for the poison shift into the breaking point and then settle for 2 Tyrants Monaco. That is a late game build. That needs a lot of farm, and DefQ definitely executed this Vox, and it's built very, very well.
Yep, and I do think that the side of Impunity, as for their draft being good at the start, I thought overall they did execute their builds, their plays well, and you're right, it did seem very controlled by the side of Impunity, and I mean Impunity, another one of those top teams. It's why they get there. They always, or I wouldn't say always, but you can say definitely most of the time these guys are in control of the matches that they play, and they really get to force and flow the game the way they want.
Yep, and okay, and Impunity has always shown us how deliberate they were. They are in terms of engagement. And we saw in one of the fights in the very early game when J3X Inferno was on a 3-man siege on the first turret of Impunity. I mentioned then that J3X just overstepped the boundary just a little bit, giving the side of Impunity a slight advantage when DefQ came back with extra items, immediately deleting both Aya Baby and Nai Bim Bim. On that, leaving Kahlua to just protect and hold that turret, and then taking the first turret from themselves. From that time onwards, if you realize, Impunity just held back really hard. It was just 2 kills over to Impunity, but they just held back. They made it such a deliberate game. They were so on purpose. Every single time. The moment they do something, they want something out of it. They take 1 kill, they take an objective. If not, then if it's nothing happening, they do not allow the game to stagnate whatsoever. Instead, they immediately head on for the gold mine. They took that gold mine, furthering their lead for by 5k, 6,000, and by then they knew that they had a chance to go on 1-up against that Weapon Adagio because of DefQ's build. He has just got so much more items as compared to this Weapon Adagio.
Yep, and with that, before we go into the next draft, I will hand it back over to Mini Mitre to go through that with you and perhaps talk on some points of what they could change up in the draft or what they should be doing towards the end game and throughout the whole match, I'd say.
Thank you for that, Iocresta Jewel. And I really want to point out a where J3X Inferno were in an all-right position. They weren't massively behind, they weren't massively ahead. And then Weapon Power Adagio decided to use his Versa Judgment, and that just lost in the team fight so convincingly. Baby was just caught out, he'd die, and he didn't get a single stun with that Versa Judgment. You should never use your Versa Judgment and Weapon Adagio unless you're going to get a triple stun. If you know they haven't got Crucible, you can get Gift of Fire on two carries or maybe all 3 members. Then you can use Versa Judgment and that'll be effective. But otherwise, just stand your ground and basic attack. You'll do so much more damage, be so much more helpful to the team than channeling that Versa Judgment. Because as you said, he just got caught out, got bursted down, and then the rest of his team was to follow. It was really well played on the Vox. I think Vox was really played that so well. Even though Vime got most of the kills, Vime got 7 kills with no deaths. Vox was just almost unkillable on the back line. The Mortal Wound, first item, and then, as you said, going into the late game build really worked out well, and Adagio just wasn't as much of a problem. There were some slightly sloppy team fights with J3X. They weren't always together. When they were pushing Kraken, there were Lara got caught out, then Sky got caught out, then Adagio got caught out. But I think if they fix those problems, the draft wasn't too bad. Speaking of the draft, let's head into the draft for the second game between Impunity and J3X Inferno. And Luxuria, what are you expecting for this first ban?
Rhyme. Oh, but we will be seeing a Black Feather coming out from J3X Inferno now on the blue side, and we have Impunity on the red. I'm actually expecting a Rhyme being banned out first, and then maybe probably picking out the Black Feather for themselves. But now we do see Impunity actually banning out that Fox against themselves, and they do not want J3X Inferno to get a hold of that Fog. So this is the first base of bans. Talk to me with that Castro pickup.
Well, clearly Impunity think that Vox is the best hero of this patch, and so Black Feather's banned. Black Feather does really well against Vox, and so that means Black Feather's banned. They're going to ban away Vox themselves because they don't want J3X to first pick it. Now Kestrel, again, we see it so much in Southeast Asia at the moment. Kestrel is a first pick. Despite what I think about Assassins, Kestrel's I think an Alpha is the return pick with obviously the Rhyme ban. If you pick Alpha, you cannot let them get Rhyme. That's really hard. You're putting yourself at just such a disadvantage. I wasn't expecting the first pick Alpha. I was expecting that maybe a last pick, maybe after the phase of bans, see what's coming up. And that's really not confusing, but extremely surprising. But it works. Alpha is fantastic against Kestrel.
I mean, Alpha is very, very good, and we've seen some insane Alpha players coming through from challenges as well, Minimizer. And I'm not surprised. I'm quite surprised actually. I'll be completely honest. If I say if I'm surprised, then I'll be lying in the viewers' faces. But we do see a Lyra picked up by Impunity, aided with this Alpha, and we've talked about Alpha, right? So you go Aftershock into Clockwork, your reboot, it's 2 seconds. And now the change is made to Clockwork, you get extra CP on top of that, and afterwards you can go into a Dragon's Eye with C-Feet, and you can just stay in a team fight forever. And that is why Alpha is just so good in this current patch. But for the side of J3X Inferno, we will be seeing Arden to accompany a Scarf.
Yeah, that is not what I was expecting. I was expecting maybe a Crew to try and counter Alpha, because Crew does really well against Alpha in the jungle. But they've gone for the poke comp, so a really good pick here would be Jewel from Impunity. It's a double dive comp. They just portal in onto the back line, or portal out of a gauntlet, though it does really well against Arden. So you just portal in with your 2 assassins, dive in onto anyone, Kestrel, Scarf, doesn't matter, execute them, and then work on to the next target. One thing to talk about with Alpha and Dragon's Eye is if you go the Aftershock Clockwork build, as you said, it's a 2-second reboot time. So if you land your ultimate, it does damage, then your Dragon's Eye will have stacked probably up to about 7-8 stacks. Then 2 seconds to reboot. If you immediately attack someone within half a second of respawning, you will not lose any Dragon's Eye stacks, despite the fact that you've gone into reboot. So that's a tough thing to do. Maybe you'll lose 3 stacks if you don't attack quick enough, but that's still really good for Alpha with Dragon's Eye. I don't like the Gwen pick. I think you're trying to beat J3X at their own game by going poke with Weapon Power Gwen, but it definitely can work. I think the Alpha is a really smart pick against Kestrel. As long as Alpha doesn't get stuck on the goop, then obviously if Alpha gets stuck in the goop, she's not in a good position. But until Alpha goes into reboot, she's really mobile with a gap closer on her B and her A. B is almost constantly up. So I think it's a really good draft from Impunity. I like what they've gone for, and whether they can pull it off is a different story. It's going to be tough for the Gwen.
Yeah, I personally don't see how Gwen is currently sitting well in the meta. I personally think Jewel is just so much stronger. Rona is open as well. You can dive in with a Rona. And we've seen quite an emergence of Rona as well. Let's all be honest. Rona quite a strong hero currently, and we are seeing a lot of bans prioritize in that first game between Infamous and Renegades and Divine Aurora. So I'm quite lost. I mean, if you are going to poke with your Gwen, then the Castrol and that Scarf can outpoke you eventually. Granted, you have got an Alpha that can prime directive into the backlines, try to remove Castrol, try to take down Scarf almost immediately, but we do see a change in Scarf as well in 2.9.1. There's a 40% shield pairs for Scarf. And I think with a Broken Myth equipped on Scarf, you get up to a 90% shield pierce.
Yeah, if you overdrive your ultimate, you put your ultimate's level 3, it goes 40 to 50 to 60% shield pierce. Broken Myth with 30 brings it up to 90%. So if someone builds an Aegis, then that Aegis then has 90% less shield than it normally would when Scarf uses her Dragon's Breath. So it's very similar to how Ringo's Hellfire Brew works. Ringo's ultimate has 100% shield pierce. Scarf's, if you overdrive and get a Broken Myth, has 90%, so it's very similar, and that definitely is an improvement to Scarf. She got a pretty reasonable buff, and the reason why Scarf got buffed and Celeste didn't, despite being very similar mages in quite weak positions, is that Scarf's abilities can be body blocked. If you body block the Spitfire as the captain, Scarf does like no damage, whereas Celeste can't be body blocked. You just have to dive her. You have to dodge and then dive in. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this Scarf is going to work, whether we're going to see that level 3 ultimate with the Dragon's Breath get as much pierce as possible, or if there's going to be more damage on the Goop, because if you Alpha stuck in Goop, there is even a chance you can kill her in Reboot despite the tanky Alpha build, the tanky in Reboot Alpha build that we see a lot of. We are now loading into the Halcyon Fold for the second game between Impunity and J3X Inferno, and so casting this game will be Luxuria and I Request a Duel.
Hello once again. So we are here into the second match, and thank you as always, Mini Mitre, for the draft. And so going into this, I was looking at the draft as well, thinking that I saw the Kestrel, and then I thought it was a good pick for the side of Impunity to go for Alpha and then ban out the Rhyme. But I do worry for if they're going to be able to make full effectiveness of that, if they're going to really be able to get onto the targets they want to. Because if they're trying to get onto Kestrel, well, a lot of the time, Scarf, if they're nearby during the team fight stages at least, will be able to put the Goop down under Kestrel and then ignite them. Otherwise, there's also the fact of we're going to have a weapon power Kestrel into the late game, so it's kind of dangerous at times if you accidentally go into a trap as well and get caught out there. And then you've got the Arden. So I think all in all, as Luxuria says, we have the side of J3X Inferno, who have a fairly decent comp to actually get out of trouble with this one, because they've got the Arden there, they have the Goop as well, and the active camo. However, it's just how much Impunity are going to be in control of this game like they were before, and whether they'll push their aggression as much as they did. Because I think if they really all single target down someone, they should be able to have the damage to burst them, and we might see that here even in the early game. But DefQ needs to be careful taking a few of those hits from the Glimmer shots, and Blue City already fairly low in that front line. We can see DefQ already popping that potion.
Yeah, and in the early game, I want to say that Gwen just lose out in terms of poke as compared to when 1v1 with Nibim on that weapon Castro, where we just see Kahlua just taking so much damage. And another thing I want to point out is actually Blue City's initial build. He bought a light shield and light armor going into the game itself, and then now just starting to pick up the boots and that of a light crystal? No, it's not a light crystal, it's a crystal bit, right? And it's quite an interesting way, for
Queasy might be the first blood, but Baby might get the other one in case. Oh, there's a lot of pressure going down from the side of J3X Inferno there. Kahlua jumping on Queasy before, and as an Arden early game, you can still deal out a fair bit of damage with the blood for blood, and then you could see Queasy just barely staying alive thanks to that Imperial Sigil, and then meanwhile Baby took the opportunity to sneak in there, landed a group down with Spitfire and did a fair amount of damage for early on. Has gone for the heavy prism and double crystal bit to start with, rarely focusing on damage. You don't see a single energy barrier there, not too concerned about that, although it might be an expected item to go for Eve of Harvest fairly early on, but whether it will be that first item pickup is the question.
Eve of Harvest generally isn't an item, you know, that people do recommend, but Bim now.
Oh, yeah, we do see a bit of pressure up in the lane. Nibimba getting caught out by that buckshot, and then Blue City able to sneak around and get the kill with the core charge. Now Kahlua left alone defending this turret, but iBaby on that scarf going to be rotating up to help defend. Kahlua going low now, and there's going to be the Vanguard on himself. Blue City diving under turret, doesn't fall, however, is going to be able to hold on to that infinite reboot perk. And we see Baby chasing them down through the lane, is able to land the goop, but not the damage. Follow up with DefQ getting kind of greedy here, looking for Kahlua, but needs to be careful. You're walking into a 2v3 situation with a lot of potential damage going towards your face with those Spitfires and those Glimmer shots. But now we see the lane has pushed up in against Impunity's first turret here, and they're just going to all regroup together. I don't think we'll see any more fighting. We do see Baby has gone down to the jungle and might just back off for now as they need to clear their farm.
Yep, iBaby on this scarf definitely have got a very good early game, and thus we are seeing a lot of aggression from this jungle dragon over here. You know, the ability to push towers as a scarf, that ability do wear off into the mid game, because when it comes in the mid game, when QC, or rather when DefQ, Blue City gets their items, then you're pushing, you cannot quite just stay in lane and consistently and just push reliably anymore, because they can't just jump on you, they can't just remove you from the team fight. Whereas in the early game, when everyone do not have the item, you have the most damage over time. And very nicely done by iBaby to just use this advantage, and we saw the amount of damage coming out onto Nibim on that Castrol by DefQ on that Gwen.
Yep, and DefQ trying to push up once again, just working on clearing farm as well at the same time. Actually having a few CS just ahead of Nibim, seeing at 51. Nibim actually catching up just then. So both laners doing a good job respectively, and we can see the junglers as well being fairly even going through their own farm. So we look at the board and there's only a 500 gold difference in favor of that of Impunity, as they were able to get the first blood, and now they are going to take Nibim to the backs with them to try help them farm up with the ambient gold. But Nibim soon realizing they have to return to this turret as DefQ starting to put the pressure down. There's the rotation coming up from Blue City. Both teams playing fairly evenly and fairly similarly. We can always see that all three members up in the lane at the same time, but it looks like Baby might get caught out alone. They do have the help of the Crystal Sentry, and there's going to be the aces high onto Baby, and the follow-through. Blue City trying to find the core charge, manages to land one, but is going to go in deep for it. Gets shut down into the reboot stage and is going to get taken down as they are stuck in the goop. Now Dragon's Breath pushing away the rest of Impunity, and they have to run out there. There's going to be the Imperial Sigil to keep them alive a bit longer, but DefQ needing to be careful as Nibim coming up from the top side, going to pincer them in, and they are able to escape from that one. But you can see DefQ always looking for early kills on this Gwen, but actually realizing they're not able to find them, because J3X Inferno have done a pretty good job for the most part with their rotations, and if not their positioning, to always stick around and be there for their teammates when they need it.
Yep, and Gwen's power spike is just so weird. He just does so well into the early game, into late game, and the only reason being it's because of the tension bow. And with the changes made to people's health, or players or heroes' health, it just works in such a bad way. I mean, we see a lot of damage coming through from DefQ, but yet again, iBaby could just survive through all of the damage, you know. Granted, there was protection coming out from Kahlua, but, you know, iBaby just could survive through all of it and just pick up for themselves Blue City in the end in that particular team fight, because Blue City has to dive in really, really deep with those prime directive into those core charges.
was in that reboot. It's such an easy opportunity for Scarf to have that goop down underneath them and just start burning them alive. As we see now, Blue City once again diving in deep and gets caught out the gauntlet for good measure, and it does catch out Queasy on the edge of it, but I don't think they'll be able to pick up a kill here. They might prove me wrong as they push him very deep, but that glimmer shot will miss, and now DefQ rotating back up to the lane, actually bought a weapon power infusion 8 minutes 55 in, thinking they need that bit more damage to really start pushing back against the side of J3X Inferno, who have actually been playing quite well for this game. I mean, we saw the previous match, they had a good early game, and now they might suffer from it just because they're not at the turret while DefQ's pushing down on it, and that weapon power infusion going to pay off. Rather than being in a fight, they're able to use it to really quickly clear that turret out, and now they have the advantage. This is what they were looking for. Oh, I'm wrong when I say that Impunity were the ones to take the first turret this match, so it is the same as last match, and it's just that it could be the similar mistake where, you know, J3X Inferno weren't able to take that first turret last match when they were so close to being able to do so, and then it led to Impunity being in control of the rest of the match. Do you think that's what we'll see here?
Well, it really, really depends, because like I mentioned before, Gwen's power spike is just so weird. It moves on a little bell curve, if you were to put it, right? She gets really strong, and then she starts to stagnate, and she drops, right? In terms of efficacy and the damage output overall. So what Impunity I see them trying to do is try to put as much early game pressure and try their best to just snowball into the late game. So Gwen's power spike, that linger period is just so much longer as compared to if you are going to play passive. So I do understand where Impunity is coming from. Look at the amount of damage on that Nibim Bim.
When they are going to be able to catch them out, Nibim having to stand still while launching those glimmer shots, and Gwen just with the massive amounts of damage with that Tension Bow and Sorrow Blade, of course the Lucky Strike and the Blazing Salvo adding on to that, but really the main items there being that Tension Bow and Sorrow Blade for the moment, just that instant burst damage they have. There's going to be the aces high onto Kahlua, stunning him out, but it looks like they would have preferred to go for Baby. One shot, one kill going to land onto Blue City, but Impunity should be safe to back off from this fight. And as you mentioned before, that really Impunity need to make use of this momentum that they have and try push for more, because it's really still quite a close game, but only difference being that objective that was taken, the first turret so far. However, it does open up Impunity to being able to move around as a team more often, as the lane is more open and they can kind of rotate through the jungle more freely, I'd like to think. And now we do see that they're continuously pushing up this lane, and it's going to have to be up to J3X Inferno to try push back and maintain that, or try and win a team fight out like they did before, but take advantage of the fact and really go for objectives. You know, it's as we always say, the team that is able to get objectives after getting kills is the team that's going to win, rather than you could have 20 kills to 5 kills, but if you've got those 20 and the enemy has 5 but has already taken down 2 of your turrets, then there's still the team that's winning overall.
Yep, and we do see Impunity now really rocking Gwen's power spike at this point in time. Having got that Lucky Strike, I think Gwen would just settle for that Tornado, or rather not another Tornado Trigger, but then the Tyrant's Monaco. It's a very good build on Gwen. Aids you up to the early, the mid-game, the mid-late game. And a lot of times now,
there's going to be the Imperial Sigil to go in, but they need to be careful. They are caught out on the active camo, but it isn't going to be enough. However, the goop over the wall into the Spitfire, the Dragon's Breath as well, having been used, will be enough as Baby able to pick up the kill, chasing down Queasy, but needs to be careful of Blue City, who's right around the corner. Blue City having to jump in towards Baby is in a bit of trouble going in that 1v1 against the Scarf, or I should say the 2v2, as the Romans are still up, and Blue City just trying to get something for it is once again going to get caught in that goop. Will get the reboot, it is enough to take down Kahlua, but no, that Trian is not up at the moment. Blue City not able to use the Prime Directive over the wall, but will use it onto the Gold Miner to get out there. So in the end, you know, with the determination, able to pick up at least a kill, and I'm surprised Baby not able to finish Blue City off.
And it is quite. I'm not sure to the viewers whether or not it is obvious, or it's either that or Blue City is just not very comfortable on this alpha. A lot of times she just got very, very low and did not use the Infinite reboot at all, or rather the termination protocol at all, right? All she just did for herself was just to boom, right? She just dies. Like, I'm not sure. I personally, I'm not sure myself, but Blue City, termination protocol is part of your kit. You have to use it to put out damage. Do not look down on the damage coming out from the termination protocol at all.
Yes, especially now with the Dragon's Eye picked up, you can really, if you're able to stay in the fight long enough and you're not just popping it straight away, which you shouldn't be as a good alpha player, you know, you get to build up what used to be your Broken Myth stacks. This time will be the stacks onto your Dragon's Eye. If you're able to build those up, you're going to have just so much more crystal power damage on top of that. And I think you said it a few streams back, you were talking about how it's almost better than Shatterglass pickup at times if you're able to fully utilize the stacks.
If you are able to, but you know, just now Blue City don't really have got, you know, those Dragon Eye item yet, and yet Blue City just allows herself to just enter that reboot without using the ultimate. I mean, it kind of boggles my mind overall. But Impunity are winning fights. But hey, so hey, what am I to say anything, right? I'm just but a caster, and now Impunity may be looking to take this crack, and now J3X Inferno may be looking to steal.
Yeah, we do see Impunity realizing that power spike. They have to really make use of this. If they're not going to go for a team fight, they have to go for objective. They don't want to hold this one out any longer, but DefQ going to land the aces high on him there. There's going to be the gauntlet trapping out Queasy and the likes of Blue City, but Blue City going to jump into the backline now using the termination protocol, looking for someone, but doesn't find anyone, just turns around. The fountain was used, and Blue City will be back up again, but now does not have that infinite reboot perk, but will be able to jump onto the backline, find Kahlua, just needs the core charge, and it does look like Blue City suffering some lag, not able to find the prime directive. However, the rest of the team looking for something here. DefQ on the run, trying to find them, but doesn't have the opportunity as Bim and Scarf, Bim and I should say iBaby, able to get out of that fight. And now Impunity going to go for this Kraken once again. They have the man advantage, and the one-shot, one-kill is up, but they will be able to body block it more than likely. I can imagine Impunity not a team to let something like that slip them past.
Yep, and Castro wouldn't even try or attempt to steal that Kraken, and for good reasons, right? I mean, even if they do take the Kraken, Impunity would have just easily be able to take that Kraken down anyways. And the side of J3X Inferno, they have a very good push comp. I mean, we saw a similar team comp coming up from Renegades earlier today, but they had a Celeste and not a Scarf. But I personally think that Scarf is in a kind of iffy, right, position, or other mages in general, in this position in the meta where they are relevant but not so much. I mean, there are assassins just out there, Aftershock just so strong, so there is no reason to run a mage anymore. And the side of Impunity really just showing J3X Inferno why you shouldn't run a mage, you know, going up against them.
Yeah, and it's definitely hard to get to that late game stage when going up against a team of Impunity, but if J3X Inferno are able to hold this Kraken back, they might have a second chance at that. It's Baby using the Dragon's Breath just to scare them away. They might lose a turret. No, it looks like they'll be able to save the turret from this, so only losing the anchor turret out of that Kraken push, so fairly good for them, but that second turret protecting their Vein Crystal is already fairly low. A single minion wave pushing into that will be able to take it, and we do see Impunity taking the chance to go through the enemy jungle as they make their way out, and it just gives us a good chance to look over at the gold at the moment. Although this has been a fairly low kill game with only 8 kills on the board over 18 minutes, 5 on the side of Impunity and 3 over to J3X Inferno. They have 38k gold over to the 36k, so only a 2k gold lead there. Still very minimal And you could see why Impunity really trying to finish out. You're right, you said that mages aren't so good in the current meta, but they might be able to pull through here with the Scarf if they really can get to the late game if this goes on any longer. Scarf already with the Frostburn, Broken Myth, and Eve. Now just looking for some more defense would be helpful rather than sitting on that reflex block, because I think that's where you can't continue to rely on Arden into the late game, where you really have to get your own defense a bit more. Of course, Arden will always be there for you, but it's not something where you can just be like, okay, I'm going to go for only a reflex block, especially if you're not on the side that's playing the aggressors. And we now see Impunity eliminating that sentry. They're in full control once again of this match, and they need to be careful for the side of J3X Inferno because it could be their last fight. Impunity, however, looking fairly confident, you know, just able to go through, continue to build up their gold lead as they clear the enemy's jungle for a second time over.
I'm not all too for II Baby's build on the Scarf. It has its users, you know, but a Broken Myth no longer works in a manner where you can just build stacks out. So if you want your Frostburn, you want your Eve of Harvest, that Broken Myth, you're just not dealing enough damage. And with the Scarf, you want that extra burst, you want that oomph in damage, if it makes sense, right? You want that Shatter Glass, like we saw Celeste or Ching on the Celeste actually build. Shatter Glass will just make so much sense for you. The initial burst of damage you receive is just insane.
Queasy body blocking that Spitfire, but here's the turnaround from the side of J3X Inferno as they land the gauntlet, trapping out Blue City, and Queasy burning Blue City down instantly. Queasy now having to be on the run. DefQ did make it back to the base, and as long as they're able to catch up with the Kraken and push in, and especially Gwen, you know, with that speed, is going to be able to get there in time. And we do see J3X Inferno more than likely having to push down this Kraken before it reaches their base. They only have a turret, and I wouldn't even call it a turret and a half at this point. It's a turret and a smidge left for them. So they are doing their best to burn this down. Just try fight for one more opportunity as Impunity have rushed another Kraken, and good job from Baby landing those Spitfires in the choke point, able to hold them off for now, but DefQ trying to look for a bit of a cheeky push is going to turn around instead, realizing they don't want to go in there, give up this control they have. And it's what you said before into the previous match of how they were playing quite passively, you could almost put it, for the side of Impunity. Like, they really didn't push too far with their advantage, and it looks like they're doing something similar here, but I would almost say that it's really starting to slip in favor of J3X Inferno maybe being able to make a comeback. They still have yet to take a turret away from the side of Impunity, however, it's not impossible.
Yep, we do see Slumbering Hearts being built on DefQ. DefQ definitely wanting to go full glass cannon, but I personally think that maybe the tension bow isn't quite needed. DefQ could have just settled for a Tyrant's Monocle, a double Tyrant's Monocle, Sorrow Blade, Tornado Trigger, double Tyrant's Monocle. I think that would actually out damage tension bow. But I need calculations from Mini or any other analyst that's in chat right now and tell me if that would be more damage as compared to, say, one tension bow and one Tyrant's Monocle. Because if I remember correctly, I think always asking Mini. Yes, always asking Mini. Yeah, do my own math. Okay, this is me talking to myself because I'm just asking Mini right now, and Mini's just telling me to do my own math. But we do see maybe a fight will be breaking out. Blue City going in with those core charges and maybe looking for the Prime Directive.
Yes, a bit of poke there coming out from the side of Impunity, just pushing J3X Inferno back into their base once again. And surprisingly enough, even though Impunity continue to take away the farm from the side of J3X Inferno, it really hasn't pushed their gold lead that much further ahead than it was before. J3X Inferno doing a decent job to somehow keep up in this current situation for them. But Kraken will more than likely be up within the next few seconds as we see it coming up. And now, you know, Impunity, they're going to pull the same strategy. They're going to take Kraken.
Nope.
No, they're not. They are not going to pull the same strategy. They're going to try and go for the backdoor. They do have Lyra on their team, so the Arcane Passage is available, but they're going to get caught out by the rest of J3X Inferno here. There's going to be the Aces High. Lands onto Arden, but Blue City already low. Baby following through with the Dragon's Breath. Blue City does get put into the Infinite Reboot stage, but the Gauntlet isn't going to stun them out, so they will be able to get up once again. They're going to jump back into the fight over the wall with the Prime Director. Meanwhile, Gwen picking up the double kill, looking for the triple. They won't get it as Kahlua able to find the safety of their base, but now Impunity with no more reason to hold this game out any longer, going to push onto the Crystal and finish it out with good measure. I thought surely Impunity, you know, going for the Kraken, but they went for the risky play. I mean, they had all the cards on the table for themselves. They still had all their turrets up. There wasn't too much to lose in that, and they went for the play. Good show from Impunity, as always, and finishing that game out, being able to win the second match as well. So 2-0 for the side of Impunity. And next up, we will have 501st Legion going up against Elite 8. But before we jump into that, what would you say about this match, Luxuria? Maybe what the side of J3X Inferno could have done, whether that be in the draft or just throughout the match?
You know, if you're to ask me, I really want to say II Baby on that Scarf definitely have got that early game DOT, could have just put more pressure in that of late. We saw excellent pressure coming up from J3X Inferno in that of the early game, but it kind of just wind off afterwards when, you know, Blue City just come up more often, and as we can tell from the playstyle of Blue City, he just don't seem quite comfortable on this alpha at all. But of course, to further break this match down, I'll throw it over to Minimizer, and let's see if Minimizer do actually agree whether or not Blue City should